Welcome back to English Classes Online, where English learning is made easy. On this channel, our goal is to equip you with the linguistic tools required for effective communication and for success in your English exams. We teach everything English, and your proficiency is our business. If you are intending to take any of the English language proficiency tests, such as IELTS and Duolingo English Test, DET, you'll find links to our training courses in the description section below. Moreover, we teach you how to use the English language as an effective tool for creating content, monetizing content, and creating for yourself multiple streams of income on various online platforms. If you are interested in such lessons, kindly subscribe to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Make sure you click on the bell icon as well, so that whenever a new video is uploaded on the channel you will be notified instantly. This will ensure that you don't miss any of our new videos. We appreciate all of you out there who keep supporting us by liking and sharing our videos with your friends and relations. Do not forget to browse through our playlists for other video lessons. In the description section below you'll also find links to different resources such as ebooks, online courses, and training courses that you might find useful for your English learning or for your content creation skill development. Let's get started with today's lesson right away.
Hi everyone, Benjamin here from English Classes Online. Today we are going to look at top comma rules you must know. We want to examine the major rules for using the comma in your English writing. So this particular lesson is designed to help you improve your English writing skills. So without much ado, let's dive into the lesson. We want to start with the lesson objectives. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to, 1, explain the meaning and importance of comma in English writing. 2, explain the rules for using comma in English sentences. And 3, give examples in sentences. Let's begin with the first. What is a comma and why is it important? A comma is a punctuation mark used to indicate a break between two parts of a sentence. In speaking, we pause at certain intervals, and that pause indicates something important to convey the intended meaning. In writing, this is the role that the comma plays in helping the writer convey the intended meaning. A comma is important because it helps to make the meaning of sentences clear by grouping and separating words, phrases, and clauses. A comma is required for an expression to convey its intended meaning. Let's look at the following example. Now, in sentence A, let's eat daddy. Of course, you know that the meaning is completely negative, all right? How can you intend to eat your daddy? But that is the meaning that this sentence conveys. The question is, why should a sentence convey this kind of meaning? The reason is simply that the comma is omitted, all right? So in sentence B, the comma plays the role to give us the accurate meaning that we intend. And so in sentence B, what we have is, let's eat daddy. You see, there is a pause. And the comma we have in this sentence, gives us the signal, and that is why it is called a punctuation mark. It is a mark that will signal to the reader where to pause and where to move on. Let's eat daddy, okay? But when you omit the comma in sentence A, what we have is let's eat daddy. Now, the meaning is completely unacceptable, all right? So that is just to illustrate the importance of a comma in an English sentence. So let's move on, okay? Now, let's begin to look at the rules for using commas with examples. We state a rule, and then we give examples of how to use a comma in a sentence. Excuse me. Number one, introductory subordinate clauses. Now, a subordinate clause is a clause that cannot stand on its own. It is called subordinate or dependent. You either call it a subordinate clause or a dependent clause, which means it cannot stand on its own. And so when a subordinate clause is used to introduce a sentence, then there should be a comma. So the rule is saying use a comma after an introductory subordinate clause. For example, when Joe got to the bank, comma, you can see the comma there. When Joe got to the bank, because there's a pause after that, when Joe got to the bank, he discovered that the bank had closed. Again, what you find here is not only a pause, but again, you can see that the comma helps us to indicate an intonation mark. Let me show you what I mean by this. The comma can help us to indicate an intonation mark. So here we have a rising tone. When Joe got to the bank, he discovered that the bank had closed. And again, you see that we have the falling tone. So the comma not only indicates a pause, but also indicates a rising tone in this particular sentence. So let's look at the other example. Let's undo this so we can move on. Okay. And so the second example, while we were working on the farm, Jack was sleeping in his room. Now, again, there's not just a pause, but a rising tone again here. When Joe was working on the farm, Jack was sleeping in his room. Okay. Then rule number two, compound sentence. When we want, when we have a compound sentence, the rule says that you should use a comma before a coordinating conjunction. A compound sentence is a group of words that contains two main clauses. The type of clauses we call independent clauses. When you join these two independent clauses using a coordinating conjunction, and these are examples of coordinating conjunctions: and, but, yet, so, or, nor, for. All right? So it is the acronym that we call fanboys in grammar, okay? So use a comma before a coordinating conjunction to join two main clauses. For example, Junior returned from school, there's a comma here, and then ate his lunch, you see? Then there is a slight pause here. That's what the comma does. A comma primarily indicates a pause in a sentence. Junior returned from school and then ate his lunch. Then the second example, you can pay in cash or you can give us a check, all right? So there's also a comma here. You can pay in cash or you can give us a check, okay? Okay, so let's go to the next, and that should be number 3. appositives, you know. Again, while we learn the use of commas, I also want you to take note of some grammatical structures that we cover in this lesson. An appositive, of course, is a grammatical structure, and the rule states that we should use commas to set apart appositives. What is an appositive? An appositive is a noun or pronoun placed next to another noun or pronoun to identify, define, or describe it. And so an appositive is a structure that eliminates a linking verb. Let's look at the example so I will show you. My uncle, Mr. Okon, lives in Calabar. Now, what an appositive does, and the appositive here is Mr. Okon. Now, let me exactly show you here. This is an appositive. When we place a noun phrase, you know, side by side with another noun phrase, my uncle is a noun phrase. Mr. Okon, you see, Mr. Okon is my uncle. My uncle is Mr. Okon. So that is exactly what an appositive does. Now, one other thing that can happen is that if we decide not to use an appositive, we can reconstruct the sentence by saying, my uncle is Mr. Okon, okay? And he lives in Calabar. You see, we may decide to use this kind of structure, and then here we are using a linking verb. My uncle is Mr. Okon, and he lives in Calabar. But here, when we use an appositive, we eliminate the linking verb is, and we simply juxtapose my uncle with Mr. Okon, and then we just, you know, put these structures together. So my uncle, Mr. Okon, lives in Calabar. Here, what we have done here is that we have combined my uncle and Mr. Okon into one subject. So let me show you what happens here. If we analyze this sentence, you see, my uncle, Mr. Okon, these two of them together forms the subject, okay? And then lives is the verb. In Calabar is the adjunct of place, okay? Now, if we analyze this second sentence, what we have is that my uncle, please take note, this is a typo here. My uncle becomes the subject. The verb is, okay, my uncle is Mr. Okon. And so this is a complement, you see? And what happens here is that we have a separate clause. We have used a coordinating conjunction to bring in another clause, and then we start another analysis here. Here we have the subject again, where we have the verb. And then here we have the adjunct. So here we have two clauses, but using an appositive, we have only one clause. So that is what an appositive does. You know, we eliminate the linking verb, and then we combine the appositive with the primary subject, and two of them become what we call a compound subject. My uncle, Mr. Okon, lives in Calabar. And the use of an appositive is just to show us that there's no difference between my uncle and Mr. Okon. Mr. Okon is my uncle, and my uncle is Mr. Okon. So we just separate these two with a comma, all right, to show that these two grammatical structures refer to the same person. That is what an appositive does. And then the use of a comma, you know, makes the appositive grammatically correct, okay, when we present it in a sentence. That's one of the uses of the comma. So let's undo this marks, and then we take the next example and we move on. But I want you to really pay attention to all this, okay? Now, the second example, our new English teacher, Mrs. Williams, is a kind woman. Okay, so it's a similar thing. Our new English teacher, then we use a comma, Mrs. Williams. All right, so we use commas, okay, to set apart the appositive here. The appositive is Mrs. Williams, and this is the appositive of our English teacher. So what an appositive does is that an appositive defines or describes the subject, identifies the subject. Who is our new English teacher? Mrs. Williams. Who is Mrs. Williams? Our new English teacher. Okay, so when we use an appositive, we use commas to set off an appositive, and that's one of the functions that a comma performs in an English sentence. Now let's go to rule number 4, and that is indirect address, okay? Indirect address. The rule states that you should use commas to indicate direct address when a speaker in a sentence names the person to whom he is speaking. For example, Rose, I think you should visit Grandma this weekend. You know, I'm talking to Rose. And so when I am addressing Rose, that is direct address, I'm talking to Rose. And so if I put this in writing, then when I say Rose, I put a comma to show that I am addressing Rose directly. So in direct address, you use a comma to indicate, you know, the person you are addressing, whom you might call the addressee. So in this sentence, Rose is the addressee. Rose, I think you should visit Grandma this weekend. Now let's take another example. Could you lend me your book, Dave? Now in this case, I am addressing Dave, and I am requesting Dave to give me his book. And then I am mentioning Dave at the end of my request, but then I use a comma all the same to, you know, separate the addressee from the rest of the sentence. Could you lend me your book, Dave? Could you lend me your book, Dave? So that is the way to use a comma in direct address, okay? So let's move on to number 5, and that is a list of things, or when you have different items or groups of items in a series, you use commas to indicate, to separate them. So use a comma to separate each item or group of words in a list. For example, James bought a shirt, a bag, and a bucket. You see, James bought a shirt, comma, a bag, comma, and a bucket, full stop. So you see, this is the way to write, and then your sentences will be grammatically correct, okay? Now let's take the second example. Mary washed the clothes, cooked the evening meal, and went in to watch the news. Now Mary washed the clothes, comma, cooked the evening meal, comma, and went in to watch the news. You see? Now, don't forget that a comma indicates a slight pause. Mary washed the clothes, pause. Cooked the meals, pause. And went in to watch the news. So you see, that's the way, even when we speak, we pause after a particular grammatical structure. And then we take the next grammatical structure and we pause. And then we take the last one and then we put a full stop. A full stop is what the Americans call periods. And that indicates, you have come to the end of the sentence. A comma is to indicate a pause. A full stop is to indicate, that you have come to the end of the sentence. So let's now take number 6, and this is abbreviations. Now, the rule is that you have to use commas before abbreviations like sir, junior, etc. Okay, for example, of course, if you say Williams Sr. instructed Williams Jr. to give the check to the manager. Now here you have a man, Mr. Williams, we call him Williams Sr. And then we have his son, whom we call Williams Jr. You see? Now Williams Sr. instructed Williams Jr. to give the check to the manager. So now, when we have the abbreviation senior, it is SR full stop, and junior is JR full stop. And so when we say Williams, comma, senior, you see, before the abbreviation, we use a comma. And then Williams, comma, junior. That's the way to write when you present abbreviations in writing. Now, another example, the shop was stocked with mobile phones, phone chargers, power banks, etc. You see, before etc., which is etc., you come with a comma, all right? So you use a comma before the abbreviation etc. And that is the appropriate way to write. Now, that brings us to number 7, non-restrictive relative clauses. Of course, you know, a relative clause is an adjective clause, and among relative clauses, you have, you know, restrictive and non-restrictive relative clauses. So let's look at the non-relative and how you can use commas when you use non-relative clauses. Now, the rule is that you should use commas to set up non-relative, non-restrictive relative clauses. Now, what are non-restrictive relative clauses? They are those relative clauses that merely give additional information and can be removed from a sentence without changing its meaning. You know, it just gives you additional information. For example, the woman who stands at the gate wants to see the principal. Now, the non-restrictive relative clause here is who stands at the gate, and that gives us additional information about the woman. Now, if we remove who stands at the gate, the sentence still retains its meaning. The woman wants to see the principal. By the way, the woman I'm talking about is the one who stands at the gate. So you see, that's what the non-restrictive relative clause does. It merely gives you additional information. There's a woman who wants to see the principal. Who is the woman, or where is the woman? Is the one who stands at the gate. So we use a comma when we bring in non-restrictive relative clauses within the sentence structure. So this is what we have. The woman, comma, who stands at the gate, comma, wants to see the principal. So you can see that what we have done here is simply to use the non-restrictive relative clause to give additional information about the woman who wants to see the principal. but the actual sentence is about the woman. The woman wants to see the principal, okay? Let's take another example. The two girls who came into our class this morning are twins, you see? And then the two girls are twins. And so who came into our class this morning, you know, gives us additional information about the two girls, okay? There are two girls that the writer is talking about. And then to give additional information about these two girls, you know, you say they are the ones who came into our class this morning. When you say the two girls are twins, you know, which girl? Those that came into our class this morning. Okay. Number 8, parenthetical expressions. You know, when you talk about, this is similar to the non-restrictive relative clauses, but again, we call this parenthetical expressions. So you use commas before and after words that interrupt the flow of the sentence. So in this case, you are saying something and then you suddenly bring in some additional words, okay? For example, some foods, sugar, for example, are not good for our health, you see. So here, we are not dealing with clauses. We are dealing with probably a phrase or any other grammatical structure. But what the parenthetical expression does is that it suddenly interrupts the flow of the sentence. Now, what the sentence should be is, you know, some foods are not good for our health. But within the middle of this statement, you want to insert the example. So you say some foods, sugar, for example, are not good for our health. So that is a parenthetical expression. Sugar, for example, is the parenthetical expression here. Now, when one other way to do this is that you could include this in brackets. You can say sugar, you can say some foods in brackets, sugar, for example, okay, are not good for our health. But then 2 commas can do the job. And so we call this type of expression a parenthetical expression. The word parenthetical is derived from parentheses, okay? Let's look at another example. My aunt, who lives in Kano, is a nurse. You see, who lives in Kano is the parenthetical expression here. Now, the sentence is, my aunt is a nurse. Then we use who lives in Kano to interrupt the flow of the sentence. And that is what a parenthetical expression means. And then the meaning of the meaning of a parenthetical expression is this. Let me demonstrate it. Now, my aunt is a nurse. By the way, she lives in Kano. You see, that expression, the parenthetical expression, can be the kind of expression we can include at the end of the sentence by saying, by the way, okay? By way of giving you additional information about the person or thing we have spoken or written about. My aunt who lives in Kano is a nurse, or my aunt lives, my aunt is a nurse. By the way, she lives in Kano, okay? So by the way, now the first sentence, some foods are not good for our health. The sugar, for example, okay? Or you can say, by the way, sugar is a good example of such foods. Number 9, dates. And the rule is use commas to separate number dates and years. For example, They got married on June 4, 2020. So here you see June 4 is the date containing, you know, the month and the day. And so a comma comes after that before the year. They got married on June 4, 2020. So June 4, comma, 2020. That's how to present your dates in writing. Let's take a look at another example. The country got her independence on October 1, 1960. So here you find October 1, comma, 1960. So that's the way to present dates in writing. Number 10, linking words and phrases. And the rule is this: use commas after linking words or phrases. Now, a linking word or a phrase is always used when we write either an article or a report that contains various paragraphs. Sometimes, you know, we need to introduce a new idea, and to introduce a new idea after a previous one, we use a linking word or a linking phrase. For example, to start with, I mean, you want to discuss something in an article, you have completed your first paragraph, and then in paragraph 2, you want to begin to discuss the key points one by one. To introduce the new idea, the first idea, you can say to start with, or you can say first of all, or you can say firstly, all right? Now, when you use this kind of phrase or word, which we call a linking phrase or a linking word, you always use a comma after that. So here you have to start with, comma, most of the roads are bad. Now, your article is discussing probably the causes of road accidents, and the first point you want to discuss is bad roads as one of the factors responsible for road accident. So you say to start with is the linking phrase, linking your first paragraph to your second paragraph, okay? To start with, most of the roads are bad. Another example, moreover, some drivers drive under the influence of alcohol. You see, moreover is a linking word. You have discussed the second paragraph where you discussed, you know, the first point, which is bad roads. You are starting the third paragraph, which discusses the second factor responsible for road accidents in your country. And to introduce this new idea, you use a linking word, moreover. So after a linking word, you always insert a comma. So that is one of the roles that a comma plays in English sentences. And this is where we come to the end of today's lesson. We have been looking at the top comma rules you must know, and we have discussed 10 of them, okay? I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. If you did, make sure you like the video and share it with your friends and relations. If you are entirely new to the channel and you have not yet subscribed to our channel, make sure you subscribe to this channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. Make sure you click on the bell icon as well, so that whenever a new video goes live on the channel, you will be notified instantly. Browse through the description section and you will find a lot of resources that will be of help to you in learning the English language. Here on this channel, we create valuable content all the time. I upload videos every week and our videos present valuable content in two major ways. Number one, we create valuable content that teaches you all the areas of proficiency in the use of English. We teach the English language, and we show you how you can gain proficiency in the use of English. And for those of you who may be going in to sit for some English exams, whether school certificate examination or proficiency tests such as IELTS, or the IELTS alternative, which is Duolingo English test. Of course, we have complete training programs that will help to prepare you adequately for these proficiency tests. If you are going to sit for JAMB, university admission examination and all that. Of course, if you are an undergraduate at any university, you will find this channel very, very interesting, because we discuss various aspects of phonetics and phonology, and those topics that you might find difficult in your department, we explain them here, and this channel is where English learning is made easy. Now, the second thing we do on this channel is that we teach you how you can use the English language as a tool for content creation. So we teach content creation, and we give you the opportunity to learn content creation skills, because in the 21st century, one of the most lucrative digital skills is content creation skill. And here on this channel, if you are interested in learning how to create content and use content to create multiple streams of income on various online platforms, you will find it quite easy to learn here. We also have training programs that you can gain access to by simply clicking on the link in the description box. We have ebooks and we have online courses. And if you click on any of them, you will gain access to them. So I want to say a big thank you to all of you for being part of today's episode. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, kindly leave them in the comments section below. I look forward to seeing you in the next class. Goodbye for now, and remain blessed. Many thanks for watching today's video. A big thank you to all of you out there for being part of today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, kindly subscribe to this channel. Subscribe now as a way of giving us support. For notification about new videos, click on the bell icon. You will find the bell icon. Click on it so that whenever a new video is uploaded, you will be instantly notified. If you have actually enjoyed the video, like and share the video with your friends and relatives. This is very important. If you have any comments, leave your comments below. Any questions, any suggestions, we would gladly receive them and respond promptly and positively to them. See you in the next video. I look forward to always seeing you in the new video. Thank you and remain blessed.